All right, Ken, thank you. Well, the next time people in wheelchairs open Google Maps, there's a good chance that they'll have more information about accessibility than they've ever had before.
That's right. So Google is asking people to answer questions in the app about businesses so that people on wheels have better information to work with before heading out. And Fox 5's Mike Doria is joining us to explain the questions and who can do the answering. This is a big deal, Mike, because it affects a whole bunch of folks, right?
65 million.
Wow.
So I asked a guy in a wheelchair what he wants all of us on two legs to know, and he said, look, people in wheelchairs want to be at eye level with you when they're sitting at a table, all right? So if you walk into a bar or restaurant and the table is this height, they're going to come up to your stomach, right? That's about eye level. And then you take a look at chairs. This is the chair to match the table. This chair is so high that a person in a wheelchair would not be able to have an eye-to-eye conversation with you. So Google Maps is calling on its local guides to answer questions in the app about the businesses and accessibility. For example, is the entrance accessible? Is there accessible parking? Things like that. Now imagine for a minute that you're sitting in a wheelchair and you roll up to a business and there's no ramp. And there's stairs instead. Finding out the hard way gets really old for people confined to wheelchairs. In some cases, they don't even want to go out. Yeah. So for the local guides to answer the questions correctly, Google Maps gives them tips. For example, a place gets a yes for a wheelchair accessible entrance if it is 1 meter wide. All right, so nobody knows what 1 meter wide is, right?
Right.
So basically, here's how to tell. It is sort of the comfortable distance two people are sitting from each other, sort of like you and Jason.
Okay.
Definitely not uncomfortable there.
Right.
And basically standing. So a wheelchair would be able to get through an entrance if it were this wide, right?
Okay.
So the man who I asked, his name is Fred. I talked to him the other day and he said he's in a wheelchair. He has MS. He can't really get up a whole lot, but he hopes Google's project with this really helps people see accessibility from an entirely new angle.
I mean, a lot of people will look at the whole thing about requirements as being an inconvenience. Well, it's not an inconvenience for us. I mean, it depends if we can go to a restaurant or not.
Sometimes he'll basically have to call ahead to that restaurant or anywhere he's going to ask certain questions. He says that does kind of get old. Sometimes he'd just like to go to a place, and if he's out and about, he has no choice but to just show up and see for himself, right? So it might take an extra 5 or 10 minutes on a visit for this local guide to get these answers and to lock them into the app. But according to Google, if every local guide answered 3 questions a day for 2 weeks, people in wheelchairs would have 2 billion more answers to work with when they go out and about. So let's say they're at a museum, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, government entities and city entities, that kind of thing, they have to be ADA compliant, right?
By law, yeah.
But businesses, it's up to them to make their businesses compliant, right?
Oh, okay.
So not all businesses are up to code. And it's not necessarily the fault of the business. You know, things might have come on after. But if you're at one place and you just want to stay out and about, well, you don't want to necessarily go up to that restaurant and find out the hard way.
Right.
It's easier if you just have all this information right in an app, and that's all Google is trying to do. So he hopes that this is going to basically be able to give him a lot more information, because right now he relies on other forums and groups, people in wheelchairs who are collecting this information sort of on their own and trying to disperse it to people, but it's not always accurate and it's not always easy to do.
And one thing, Mike, you mentioned last hour was that they don't want people to do this for just a week and say, okay, I'm done, I've done my part. They want people who are dedicated to inputting this information, right?
Yeah, you know, like if you sign up to be a local guide, and it's really easy to do if you download the Google Maps app, it'll ask you if you want to be a local guide, but they want people who are going to stay at this because, look, it's not just a 1 or 2 day thing. You're going to have to be at this for a couple of weeks to make sure all that information gets into the app. They don't want people doing it for 5 minutes, get bored, because that's not going to help the people in wheelchairs.
No.
All right, I love that story. Great information. 65 million people.
65 million.
Ooh, that's a lot. All right, thanks, Mike. 8:07 right now. Well, after